to the viewers watching. I am Zack Shiffman with the Sire Creative Nook series on our YouTube channel. And I'm here today with, correct me if I mispronounce, Villimey Mist.
Well, this is a common misconception, but actually the double L's, they're pronounced so Villimey Mist.
Okay. So Villimey Mist, I'm here with. And she is known on Twitter and YouTube as Fanged Pipsqueak, and she is the author of the Nocturnal Series, available on Amazon. And I'm here to interview her, and I'm so happy you came. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, why don't you just tell us like a little bit about yourself?
So I'm basically just this little girl. Yeah, I'm little. That's why I call myself Fanged Pipsqueak because I'm small. But I'm from Iceland, and I'm just this weird girl who loves everything macabre or love horror or just love all the weird things. And I try to put all of that into my own writing and into my art as well.
All right, awesome. So, so I guess I'll just go right into the interview then, because first question is about Nocturnal Blood,
Mhm.
or the Nocturnal series as a whole. So it is a series. The first three are out on Amazon, but you have more coming, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's correct.
So when did you know that the story would span multiple books? Was it from the beginning? Was it like as you were writing the first? When did you know this?
It basically just came to me when I was writing book three, actually, because people might not actually see it, but when I was writing book one, I had intended it to be just a standalone novel. But thankfully, my editor, Serena Langer, she contacted me like when we were, on the finishing line with the first book, and she was like, "No, honey, Leia has much more potential, and this world, you've just given us just a little bit of a taste of this world, and you definitely need to expand on it more." And I wasn't, that wasn't my plan, but I considered it, and then one day when I was just doing the dishes. It's just a mundane thing. And, the plot for book two came to me. And then I was like, okay, well, you know what? I actually have ideas to expand this world. And that's how it developed.
That's very cool. So did like the whole plot of book two come to you like all at once, or did it just like hey, what if Leia did this?
Well, the basic premise actually just came through when I was doing the dishes because the core element or like the core theme of the Nocturnal series is basically, family, whether it's found family or your own family, just family in Leia's mind is just so important to her. So I decided to torture her even more and like, hey, why not involve her little brother in it as well? And then, when I thought of that, like, how can I involve him? And I decided like, and how can I expand it more? And just the idea of going away from the United States and into Europe was seemed like a good idea to expand the vampire world a little bit more to get her like a new taste of how everything is different from the what happens in the States.
So moving to Europe kind of gave you more like options for your world building.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
All right, that's cool. So, all right, that's very cool to hear. So, my next question is, which I noticed while I was reading Nocturnal Blood, because, well, at least that's the question. Nocturnal Blood is a book that is lacking in romance. Like there are some elements here and there, but like overall, there's no romance in the story. So this seemed pretty intentional in my reading. If that's true, what
Yeah,
inspired that choice?
it is definitely intentional because when I started writing or when I started planning to write Nocturnal Blood, it just always was in the back of my mind, just this tiny little gnat, just pricking away at the back of my head. That there are so many, like, people usually associate vampires nowadays with paranormal romance. And it kind of bugs me because I mean, sure, they are charming, and my vampires, of course, they are charming as well. But it feels like they've kind of thrown away the element of how terrifying they can be. So for me, I've always viewed them as these kind of, humanoid predators who can just, walk among the humans, and they could just disguise themselves as humans. But at the same time, if you look away, they will just tear your throat out. And I just wanted to go back to that when I was writing Nocturnal Blood. I wanted them to be like, hey, you can't really trust anyone, even, humans, but at the same time, you should not trust most of the vampires that I have. Like, they are terrifying.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you look at like Dracula, right? Like that is how Dracula, the original, was portrayed. But then you look at modern vampires and they like glitter and stuff. So
Exactly.
there's a divide there. So
A lot of my friends, they've been saying that that Nocturnal Blood is kind of like the antithesis of Twilight, and for me, that's like the best compliment in the world.
I can see that. Yeah, I definitely got anti Twilight vibes from Nocturnal Blood, just from lack of romance alone, and from how the vampires were portrayed.
Yeah.
So, all right, that's awesome. So my next question is, we kind of went through this a little bit, but if you want to go more in depth, what do you personally find appealing or frightening about specifically vampires and vampire stories?
Well, like, I grew up, reading about Bram Stoker's Dracula. So like, Dracula is my one-time favorite vampire because, he is kind of like these Gothic serial killer, if you think about it. He's this really charming guy, but when you like peel apart this charm, then you just find this grotesque monster underneath, and that is just really, really terrifying to me. And just how he managed to manipulate people, and that, in my opinion, is what I find really terrifying about them. I mean, they have their flaws, you know can only walk, go out during the night, or go, there are some limitations to them, like according to certain lore. And but that really hasn't stopped them from time to time. I mean, night is like, especially in modern days, like, night is such a bustling life. Like, everyone is going out at night. There are so many like night jobs, and people are just going out to clubs. So for vampires in general, that would just be a buffet for them. So there's not really much that's limiting them at the same time. And that's actually really terrifying at the same time. So being able to blend into the crowds and still be, untouchable is what really terrifies me.
I hadn't really thought about that because I always associate the night with being like pretty empty compared to the day. But when you describe it like that, that is true. Like it is a buffet in a sense for vampires.
It is, especially like in Europe. I mean, the nightlife here in Europe is so astounding. It's so like bustling with life that if there were vampires walking among us, I mean, they would be like, I have a hard time choosing which to pick.
Yeah, I've never been to Europe, so I didn't know. That's very cool, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
So my next question is about Leia, right? So in Nocturnal Blood, at least, there's an emphasis on mental illness through Leia's perspective, right? She has anxiety and OCD, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
So what do you feel is the value of incorporating this aspect of the character into the story? And by doing so, what message are you expressing in your work?
I'm just generally expressing that, there are a lot of people out in the world that have some kind of mental illness. I feel that this, because there's still so much stigma around it, you shouldn't talk about it, or you shouldn't, seek help, even if it's, life, like if it's crippling you. Um, in my story, I just wanted to incorporate Leia having these kind of problems, because actually I have these problems. I have anxiety and I have OCD, And but my everyone's anxiety and everyone's OCD is so completely different. That's why it's so hard to detect them sometimes or diagnose them. So I wanted just to let people know that there are characters out there that they might relate to. It makes her feel a little bit more relatable, more fragile than other main characters. Like other, most of the time when I've been reading these kind of stories, the main character is always just this badass character, like right off the bat. And I just wanted it to be like in a realistic situation. Like if you're thrown into this kind of situation, you wouldn't just be go like, hey, okay, grabs an axe and just starts slaying vampires. You would probably just be in the corner in the fetal position and just bubbling and bawling your eyes out. At least in my case, I can't speak for everyone, of course. But I just wanted to let people know that having a mental illness is not something that's going to cripple you. It is okay to talk about, and it's okay to include them in these kind of stories.
Yeah. As someone who also has some anxiety in certain situations, I did relate to Leia, and there was definitely an element of realism to her in the sense that the way she reacted to certain things, it wasn't the typical reaction of things that I've seen in other books and media to intense situations. It was pretty realistic, and I was like, oh, okay, that's probably how I would react. All right, nice. It was surprising.
Yeah, that's just how I pictured it. Like I usually try to put myself in these kind of situations. Like if, for example, if I'm watching any kind of movies, I would just always think like, okay, how would I survive in a zombie apocalypse? And then I would be like, oh no, wait, I wouldn't. I'd probably be dead for the for the first time.
Yeah, that was my thought throughout watching The Walking Dead. Just like, oh, I wouldn't even make it to season 1 probably.
Yeah, same here. It's just, you kind of have to put yourself in that situation and just kind of always consider the worst case scenario and just how you would tackle that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I got you. So my next question then is, do you have plans to tackle anything as large in scale as the Nocturnal series in the future? So once the Nocturnal series wrapped up, are you going to tackle anything similar?
Possibly, maybe. I haven't gone that far into the future. My anxiety would not like that. But I have like in store, maybe not to that grand of a scale. I mean, I am like thinking of having making Nocturnal series into like a 6-book series. Wasn't my intention, of course, but then again, my like Leia was just knocking on my head like, hi, I'm not done yet, can you please move on? And so I'm working on that. But I might maybe go into like a 2-book series or a 3-book series. There is a zombie story that I want to focus on a little bit later. I have some ideas for it. I haven't plotted it out entirely, but like I have the premise sort of sorted. So that I'm thinking that might turn into maybe 1 or 2 books. So that's at least what I'm doing.
Okay, that sounds well. I'll keep an eye out for a zombie story. I love zombie stories. So that's cool. So next question is, so short stories. I understand you've been writing some of those, right? Like more recently.
Yeah.
So how is your process of writing short stories different than writing like the Nocturnal series, like novels?
Well, it is kind of different because short stories they're meant to be short, so you have to really like compartmentalize everything. Just really, really put it all down into a little small box. So you don't really have to go into a lot of details most of the time, and basically it just has to have like a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you just have to be really concise about it, whereas in a novel you can just really explore most of the other stuff. You can put like a sub premise into it, or like a subplot, and you can put a lot more themes into it. You can also put a lot more characters and make and revolve around them. So it's more, there's more planning to do in a novel whereas in, a short story, if you have an idea and if you have a focused like beginning, middle, and end, it's much easier to do when you crank it out.
So for a short story, you get an idea and then you can just kind of explore that idea. Meanwhile, with a novel, you get an idea and you have to explore that idea plus plan out like 10 other ideas that you have to.
Yes, exactly. And not only ideas, you have to also, setting, is the setting going to work? How is the theme going to be like throughout the novel and everything?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I got you. As someone who's also written longer works and shorter works, I agree. Like
Yeah,
it's different.
it is. And especially, I'm such an impatient person and I'm such an underwriter that, writing short stories at the moment has been so liberating because I don't have to go like, okay, so I need to work on this for how long now?
Yeah, I've been working on like a novel for like almost 3 years now, so it is very liberating and satisfying to write a short story and like have and be able to write an ending finally. You know what I mean?
It's so good. It's just so nice, especially because, even when you are writing like a novel, all these other ideas always just keep banging against your skull. So you're just, okay, I can just put that in a short story and just move on and then continue on with writing the novel. It's much better.
Yeah, like you get an idea while writing your novel, and like you're like, oh, that'd be cool, but I can't really work it
Yeah,
in. Like
yeah, it
just
doesn't work in the novel.
yeah, 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 I agree with you. So my next question, we're almost nearing the end. What is your ideal environment for writing?
I haven't really actually explored that. A lot of people I've seen on Twitter, like they've go to a cabin and just do that thing. I don't really thrive on that. I have to, like, a lot of people think having peace and quiet while writing is like the ideal environment for writing. I've kind of just been raised around having so much background noise around me that I have to have background noise. So I like the TV has to be on, and I have to put on something mindless like Friends or Family Guy or American Dad, anything that I've seen so many times that I can just quote it, and that just kind of gets me peaceful, and I'm not like getting anxious. And so basically my ideal environment at the moment is just sitting here on my living room table because that's basically my office, and just be surrounded by my TV, having my computer there. I don't. That's the thing about what people probably don't know about me. I don't write on the computer when I'm writing stories. I write everything longhand.
Oh wow. So
Yeah.
like a notebook?
Yep. I always have to have a notebook either like on the living room table or in my like bag whenever I'm working, or even when I'm at work. If it's quiet at work, I just bust out the notebook and try to write anything I want. I just been raised on that, and even when I just put my pen in my hand and just putting on the paper, the ideas just flow. If I just stayed in front of a computer, they don't, for some reason. I don't know why.
That's interesting. So, and that brings to mind another question. So that means that when you write stuff on like a notebook paper, and eventually you end up transcribing it to the computer, how
Yeah.
much gets changed? Is it word for word, or are you just like, this would sound better like this?
Yeah, that's what I really like about, writing everything by longhand, and then when you transfer it to the computer, you manage to detect something that doesn't really make sense, and you might be able to change it. And I usually do use the dictation button that's on Word. It saved me so many hours. But at the same time, when I'm reading it out loud as well, it really helps me detect what sounds wrong, and especially when it comes to dialogue, like if it sounds like forced or doesn't sound natural, I manage to detect it immediately. Just not you don't really see that when you're writing it, constantly at the time. But being able to do that has helped me edit a little bit at a time.
That's interesting. So when I write, I basically just go on the computer, but you're saying you write in a notebook and then read from the notebook, making some edits along the way to get to a Word document.
Yeah, that's what I did.
That's very interesting. I've never, but that's a process.
I mean, yeah, it's a lot of work, but it works for me. I can't say that it works for everyone, but it kind of works for me.
I mean, that's very cool either way. If it works for you and it produces stuff like Nocturnal Blood, then keep on.
Yeah.
So next question I got here is, what are some of your favorite works of Gothic and horror literature? We talked about Dracula, but what else you got?
I love Shirley Jackson's The Lottery. I was introduced to it when I was in high school, and it's so funny because I am such a bookworm, and I read so many stuff, like so many books when I was in like elementary school. I just when people went to recess, I just wandered into the library like, what book can I read now? And when I was introduced to The Lottery, I think I was the only one who was like completely blown over by how well she wrote it and how she managed to punch you in the gut with that ending. And it just blew my mind away. And I always keep telling people, if they want to go into the introduction of horror, just by all means read Shirley Jackson. She's so good at it. And I also love Charlotte Perkins Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper. It's not, I wouldn't really classify it as like a typical horror literature or like Gothic literature, but the elements in it is so haunting, and it's just so horrifying because this actually was a thing in the past. Like women were described being hysterical when they were suffering from mental illness or anything like that. And just the way she wrote it as like this kind of being living inside the wallpaper, it was just really, really good. And of course, one of my favorites is Edgar Allan Poe. I love everything about his work. One of my his favorite is The Black Cat. I had one artist, Icelandic artist, she did like a picture, or like she drew like a picture of it, and she was selling it at a convention, I think 2 years ago, and I bought two of those prints, even though they were the same one. I'm like, nope, getting both, one in A4 and one in A3.
That's awesome. I haven't read The Black Cat yet. I've only read a few of Poe's stories. I love The Lottery. Have you read The Haunting of Hill House?
Yes, I have. So good. And I love the adaptation that Netflix did.
I haven't seen the adaptation yet, but I do love the book.
It goes in a completely different direction, of course, but what he managed to add, like in terms of Gothic horror, is astounding. Like Mac Flanagan, it really, really does his work. So I highly recommend it.
Okay, I'll definitely check it out. Yellow Wallpaper I also haven't read, but I have heard of it, and it sounds very good. I'll definitely check that out at one point as well. Have you read The Picture of Dorian Gray?
Of course. Love that one as well. And I did write, there was a submission call right now from Crystal Lake Publishing. They were doing like a classic Monsters Unleashed anthology right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they were looking for these kind of retellings basically, but not taking the classic monster, but taking the side characters. And I decided to do like a Lovecraftian version of Dorian Gray.
As someone who loves Lovecraft and loves Dorian Gray, I'm gonna check that out. You say Crystal Lake Publishing?
Yeah. I mean, they haven't announced anyone like who has gotten into the TOC. So, and I can't, guarantee that my story is going to be picked. But I mean, if it doesn't, I am working on doing like my own short story collection, so it'll definitely be there.
Okay, that's cool. I'll keep an eye out for both of those in that case, because that sounds very cool. And I have a question before my final question. Have you seen Supernatural?
Of course.
Okay, I figured, just because I got strong supernatural vibes from Nocturnal Blood.
Wait, from the hunter, didn't you?
The hunters, the vampires, like really just the world felt very like adjacent to Supernatural.
Yeah, well, I pictured Jensen Ackles when I was creating Matthew.
That's that's cool. I was picturing one of the side character hunters from the later seasons, like remember from season 12 that Asia Fox guy, whatever his
Oh
name.
yeah.
He's the fox. Yeah, I was picturing him.
I mean, it's not inaccurate.
But yeah, that's very cool. I love Supernatural, and your book definitely gave me Supernatural vibes. So that was a good surprise when I was reading it. So my final question in that case then is there anything else you want to say about your work? Is there anything else you want to say about future pieces or projects that you want the Dark Sire and the Watchers to know? Anything you want to promote? Anything you want to say at all is your time now.
All right. Okay, so I wrote in March and I published in April this kind of short story called The Banquet. And I was inspired actually by Shirley Jackson's The Lottery to write it. There were a multitude of things that inspired me to write it, but mostly it was because this one guy, this middle-aged guy, or maybe it was an elderly white guy, I don't know. He decided to quote tweet my idea. I was still kind of like airing this idea to my community on Twitter, like, hey, how do you like this idea? And he quote tweeted me, said, no, I don't like this idea. I won't support it because the world has had enough men bashing as of late. And I just found that so ridiculous, and it actually fuels my desire to write it even more. So basically what The Banquet is about, it's there's this woman called Maria Lopez. She is a sexual assault survivor, and she gets invited to The Banquet, which is a secret annual event where survivors of sexual assault will get the opportunity to exact vengeance on their attackers. So
That sounds cool.
yeah, so it's basically a revenge torture story. A lot of people have compared it to Hostel in a way, which I found actually was kind of a good comparison, but in a way that, might be cathartic for the women who have actually endured this kind of horrific thing. So I wrote it for them, and all of the proceeds that go, to will go to a charity, an Icelandic charity called Stiomot, and they offer counsel to victims of abuse, any kind of abuse. So they offer free counsel to them, and they're like a non-profit charity foundation, and all the proceeds that will go when buying my short story, it will go there. So that was just basically my thing to do something for them, because there really isn't doing a lot for them, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's very cool of you. I will link that in the description for sure, so people can check that out and hopefully buy it.
Yeah, it's not on Amazon because I wanted people to get, like, if they're getting really pissed off at Jeff Bezos, so I decided to publish it on smashwords.com. So I'll send you the link and people can buy it there. It is available in all formats there, so it's nice.
Okay, yeah, definitely send me the link and I will put it in the description so people can buy it and not support Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Whenever possible.
Yeah.
So
I published that one, and I'm trying to promote the hell of it out, of course, with that. What I'm working on right now is just basically I'm probably gonna focus more on writing a lot of more short stories. Hopefully they will find their home in the submission calls that I found online. But I'm also working on this Western horror. I've suddenly been bitten by the splatter Western bug, and I really just want to try my hand at it, even though it's something completely different that I've never written or like read a lot before. So it will be both challenging, but at the same time, a lot of fun. I'm going to be co-writing it with my friend Damascus Minsmeyer. He actually did the illustrations for Nocturnal Farm and Nocturnal Salvation, the books 2 and books 3 in my Nocturnal series. He will eventually do some illustration for Nocturnal Blood. I'm just giving a little bit of a space to breathe at the moment. So he's going to help me, work the kinks out, because he's more familiar with, Westerns than I am. And, he lives in the States, I don't. So it's going to be, a good way to work together. What's going to be different about this Western horror is that I'm going to include most of my Icelandic roots into it. So it won't be this kind of typical American creature feature. It's actually going to be like an Icelandic creature feature where it will, revolve around what we call in Icelandic huldufólk, or the hidden people. It's kind of like elven spirits that reside in our rocks here in Iceland, but they've kind of migrated to the west. And so it's going to be something about that. And they're all going to be trapped in a train, and one is going to be people are going to get eaten or picked or killed one by one, and it's up to the main character to find out what's happening.
Okay, I'm not gonna try on that pronunciation, but a book about, or a story about the hidden people of Iceland that's a Western horror sounds pretty sweet, in my opinion.
mean, it sounds original. I don't think anyone has done that, so that's something.
I've definitely never heard about anything like that. Although I haven't really read much Icelandic work or Westerns, actually, but I've definitely never heard of the combination of the two.
No,
So
I really want to put more my Icelandic horror into my stories. There are some that I've already published. If people are interested in reading short stories or want to read something involved with Icelandic horror, I have one story published in the Far From Home, an adventure horror anthology that is published by Villimey Mist. And that has that actually happens in Iceland, and it has a Icelandic mythological being in it. So if people, they don't know a lot about what kind of mythological beings we have besides the elves, we don't have a lot of trolls like the Finns do, but we have some, but they're not as scary as the ones in Finland.
where's that anthology available?
Both, I think, on Amazon and also on their website, offlimitspress.com. It just recently it was just recently released, I think May 15th. So.
Oh, okay. It's very recent then. Okay,
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that basically concludes the interview. If you don't have anything else you want to say, of course.
Well, I mean, if you want to check out my books, you can definitely do that. I finally revamped my website so it doesn't look hideous anymore. So they can find all the information about my books on my website, villimeymistauthor.com. And there you can find information. And you can also find information about my YouTube channel, where I review books published by indie authors and small presses. I try to focus on them to give them more, the spotlight that they deserve. And on my website, you can actually suggest a book to me for me to review. So if you have anything that I definitely should take a look at, I will, take a look at it and see if I can fit it into my really huge pile of TBR.
Yeah, you can't see it, but over my shoulder, like on my dresser, my TBR is literally like two separate piles. It's pretty bad.
Yep. Yeah, my Kindle is like that too. It's awful.
Me too. So I'll link your website. I'll link the anthology, and I will link the banquet on Smash. Where is it available?
Yeah.
Amazon Smashwords. I will link all of that so people can check it out. And if that's all, then I thank you so much for coming. This has been the Dark Sire Creative Nook, hosted by me. And that concludes the interview. So I guess we can just head out. Thank you again so much for.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy that he wanted to interview me. So it's really nice.
Yeah, definitely. I really enjoyed Nocturnal Blood when I read it. So, when I started at the magazine, I was like, oh, let's interview her. She's on she's in the aesthetic. She knows what she's doing.
Oh, that's good to hear.
So, Villimey, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for coming again, and I will goodbye. Thank you.
Have a nice day. Bye.